Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramon, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. The podcast is dedicated to exploring the idea of doing business and living life with a purpose, serving others, and yes, achieving success. We believe that when we approach work in our lives with a servant's heart, we can truly make a difference. We create this show for you because we want everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to make an impact in your world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a community leader, or simply someone looking to bring more purpose into your daily life, this podcast is here to support and uplift you. Think about how you're going to serve today and think about the impact you're going to create with that service. Well, my guest today is impactful, intelligent, and is somebody you're going to really want to take a piece of paper and a pen and write down some notes or listen to this podcast over because you're going to get some great information. Steve, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Appreciate you having me on. I'm excited for the conversation.
You bet.
I really like what you're doing with the podcast. This is important topic, and it's near and dear to my heart. So, again, thanks for having me, man.
Well, thank you very much. It's all about you're a servant. Well, let's talk about that. What's a servant leader sound like to you?
Yeah, servant leader is it's almost become a buzzword, right? That it means a lot of things to a lot of people. But I think, overall, when I think about, what I hope to put out there in the world, it's things that lift people up, right? Things that help people along. And, from my experience, I know by doing that, I get just as much value out of it, right? So one of the challenges in business is finding a platform, finding a way to kind of blend those two things, right? Often I'll talk with folks who are either deeply religious or have, strong spiritual backgrounds, and they'll have challenges blending their work life with that personal life when it comes to challenging topics like how do I deal with conflict in the workplace, right? How do I deliver a difficult message to somebody who's unwilling to take criticism, right? Those are challenging things for folks that live in their personal life with a servant heart, and then bringing it into the workplace. So, living with a servant's life. How do we lift others up? How do we inspire others to achieve their best, right? All those things that really, for me, come down to what the meaning of life is, right? And that's self-actualization, right? How do we improve ourselves in the mold and our authentic, true self that we hope to be, right? Servant's heart means a lot of things.
It does, and that's a good start, and that's the great thing about servant heart. You can go anywhere. With that being said, you said inspiration and impact, they go together. You inspire somebody, you've made an impact. How do you approach building high-performing teams? Because teams are what businesses are about. Community, team, whatever. How do you go about helping teams?
Yeah, it starts with trust, right? My background a little bit in turnarounds, and the first thing when I'm encountering a challenging team or a challenging organizational situation is you start with trust, right? And the faster we can get to a place of trust with the majority of the folks, the faster we can start turning that into productive conflict and productive changes that bring about positive outcomes. And there's lots of different ways to build trust depending on the scenario. But for me, I found that the more authentic I am, and the less perfect I present myself, the more folks see me as a leader who's a person, and it helps me align goals in the same direction. And once we kind of agree that we're all trying to head in the same direction, then it's just understanding differences in personalities and opinions, and thus trust built, right? So, and there's lots of different kinds of workshops out there. I'm a real fond believer in something called the Colby assessment and the Colby index, which is a personality profile that focuses on how we all work together, how different personalities and styles work together. And on the other side of that is an air where we can kind of all laugh at each other, knowing our own personalities are different, and hey, that's just because you're this way, and we can use that humor and that kind of fun, poking at each other to be at a place of common common understanding, and then we can move forward with trust. But it all starts with trust.
How important is a leader to be transparent when they make mistakes?
So again, going back to great question, right? God, this is right in my wheelhouse. Things that are passionate with me. You really said that you were going to hammer on these, and you did. So I think it's super important, right? And my experience tells me that I may be in the minority opinion on this one, unfortunately. But when I say that it all begins with trust, being honest about my own faults, right, as I'm making them, and the faster I'm able to do that, I've seen that I get closer and build trust faster, with the people I'm working with, right? And that's true, certainly, left to right, horizontally in the organization, but definitely as I look down into my downstream, somebody who admits their mistakes is actually, and there's some Harvard studies built on this, is actually considered more competent and more trustworthy. So, the studies are out there, but I think it takes a strong character, and I'm not perfect at it, right? But it takes a strong character and somebody who has some strong values to be able to quickly do that, right? It's unfortunate, but often leadership is seen as somewhat of a posturing and a modeling and masking to be the way that you think a leader was 25 years ago, right?
Yeah, and that's powerful, because ego should not be part of the equation. That's, to me, is not the good leader. Egotistical, this is it works for it's a short period of time, but if you keep pounding on people with your ego, eventually they're going to walk out the door and you have nobody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one would say that ego and trust can't occupy the same space,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
What's
that's a good one.
what's the most significant continuous improvements you've delivered during your career?
Oof. uh so in organizations,
Yeah.
yeah, so and there's been a few. I think one that sticks out to me because it was so drastic was, I was called into an organization relocated from Houston up here to the Midwest, with a struggling organization, that was ranked 19 out of 21, in units across. It was a global organization, global 100 organization, and it was, this particular unit was ranked 19 out of 21, and long story short, we were ranked number 1 or 2 when I left. um, and over 5 years, it was really, the first time that I was able to, define and apply this model that I've been developing over my career, where we build trust, we build authenticity, we speak frankly with each other, and we're open and honest with things when they're not going well, right? But I think most of all, and the reason why I'm very proud of this one, is most of all the challenges inside of this organization, was a general morale issue, inside of the whole organization, but specifically with the revenue engine. So the sales folks and the folks driving revenue had significant morale issues, and no surprise. Prior to I got there, over 7 years, they had seen 5 different senior leaders, right? So 5 different executives in my position, and so no surprise, right, that there was this, what's next, and hey, I just want to fly right under the radar, do just enough not to be noticed, and all those kind of things we know that happen in these kind of low morale environments. And so, um, you know, as I can be somewhat of an energetic fellow, and I kind of lead with my passion and keep my emotions oftentimes on my sleeve, and that was new, and I think that drove some energy into the environment immediately. And as we worked on these trust exercises, it was like, oh, okay, Steve's not here to to cut people. In fact, we grew over that time. It was my first year there, it was the first time in 5 years that we hadn't cut people in that organization, in that unit. And so, by the second year and then the third year, it was like, oh wow, Steve really is, here to grow the business. They're not here to, drive profit, right? Although we did, right? We doubled profit as a percentage over that time. So, yeah, inspiration is important to me. I believe that it's amazing what the same person can do going from a place of uninspired and not aligned with values to a place where they're inspired and they have activities and goals in front of them that align with their values. It's amazing how much more productive they can be, not only for a business, but for themselves, right? These are also people who are going home, not feeling like, they're going to kick the dog or whatever the saying is, right? Where you're just going home and bringing work home with stress and all that. So thanks for asking that. That's one I was real proud of. And when I handed back the organization, I like to do turnarounds. I like to move on to the next thing, and so I did. And my boss said, hey, you're handing this back in significant better place than when we got it. And I said, well, just make sure you keep treating the people right, right? Yeah. And because that's what it was. That's what it was, right? So
we all want that feeling too of being successful. And that's such powerful. Marketing, KPI, revenue, income, sales. These are buzzwords in business tied to growth. What strategies do you suggest for businesses and that you work with for growth in the company? Because it's important. We have no income or revenue, probably not going to make it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, revenue, the old saying, right? Revenue covers a lot of sins in business, but it exposes them just as fast when things go south. So, yeah, I mean, it depends on the scenario, right? The situation. There's a lot of different scenarios that people could be facing when it comes to revenue growth. But the thing I see the most in my consulting work is companies that haven't thought through what their organizational structure looks like inside of revenue generation, right? They haven't, if you don't have a background in sales, or if you don't have a study in sales, oftentimes sales is kind of a black box, right? We hire people and hopefully revenue comes out. We put a comp plan together that we think makes sense, and we have the best product in the world, and so it'll go out the door and it'll be great. And if there's something wrong with sales, we have bad salespeople, right? Which, in my experience, is less likely to be the cause than infrastructure problems. And when I say infrastructure problems, I mean sales processes, sales motions, compensation plans, organizational structure. One that I see a lot when I talk about organizational structure is an owner who has taken on the responsibility of managing sales. And one of two things can happen. One is they're so busy doing everything else and selling themselves that the sales team is really floundering with no direction, right? Or the exact opposite, they're so ingrained in managing the sales team and it's their hot passion because it's their business that they end up micromanaging and may or may not be successful in managing a sales team. And meanwhile, the rest of their business is floundering because they're not paying any attention to it, and they're having a problem managing sales. So there's about 6 different components I look at Obviously infrastructure, CRM that gives us good forward-looking data so we can have some leading indicators and those kind of things. Sales process and sales playbook, and then obviously assessing the team skills and people, and then obviously comp plan, right? And inside of that, we have to have the right training to drive them in the right way.
Yeah.
But depending upon the scenario, one of those six may be more important than others. So.
Right. And that's what you find out, which is what your discovery calls to find out the pain points and do that.
Yeah.
I think
they're
there's not a
they're
lot.
all important.
Go ahead.
It's just where you start, right?
Yeah, exactly. The roadmap, the journey you're going on. I think fun is missing in businesses because of COVID, recession, prices going, all the, which happens all the time in the world. It's just more glaring now than ever. But how do you bring fun and especially collaboration to a workplace? You've talked about trust. What are other ways you can do that?
Yeah, I mean, it does all start with trust. And I think in between trust and having fun, and I'll talk about having fun, but in between trust and having fun is giving a sense of certainty, or at least getting a team comfortable with uncertainty, right? And that comes down to vision, right? I know that in that scenario that I was talking with you earlier about, it was probably every week, if not more often, I would talk about where we're heading, right? Here's where we're going to be number one, right? We're going to get, marketplace of the year, right? We're going to do that. And, funny enough, when I first get there, right, you say that kind of stuff and I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? We're number 19. We're never going to get there. And that happened to other companies too. I had this crazy goal that seemed aspirational. And amazingly, we hit them, right? And my intent is not necessarily to hit them. My intent is to give an aspirational goal of where we're heading directionally, right? So giving some clarity of purpose, after you develop trust, you generate some clarity of purpose. Here's the direction we're going. We're going to get there, guys. Come with me. And then you inject fun, right? And fun is kind of three things for me, right? It's how I interact, every day, right? So, as I'm talking with a staff member or something, I have an opportunity to get them out of stress and worry, right? Hey, I'm sure it'll work out. I know it's stressful for you. How can I help? All right. Yeah. Hey, we've seen this before, right? Hey, by the way, how did it go with your brother yesterday? Or, whatever, and decrease the amount of stress that has, right? While at the same time, showing that I have trust in their abilities, right? Often the stress comes from, what does my boss think of me, right? So trying, and there's lots of different kinds of scenarios that can bring stress and how we can address that, but decreasing the amount of stress inside of their daily life. And then second, like I talked about, continuing to talk about that vision, but then measuring it, right? So showing that we're making progress, right? Showing that they're making progress and celebrating it, right? And then, finally building in events and specific miles. I don't want to say milestone, but times where we can celebrate and have fun, right? We may talk about business, but it's less important than making sure that we're building relationships, right? Because that's really what we're talking about when we're having fun. Yeah. One of the things we did the second year at that one scenario is we had a carnival. Every quarter we'd do a kickoff for the quarter and that kind of thing. And one of the guys who, interestingly enough, wasn't highly engaged when I got kind of poo-pooed, but he came up with this idea. He said, why don't we do like a carnival theme kickoff? And I was like, what a great idea. So we had games and that kind of stuff. And, the important thing wasn't to have these great carnival thing. The important thing is that we're having fun and doing silly things and having a good time and recognizing that businesses are made up of people and people are inherently emotional. Thus, businesses have an emotion and a heart to them. So we got to address that.
I've talked to two successful NFL college coaches, high school coach, last 6 weeks. That's what you said. That's exactly what they said. That's why I love to parallel the sports to business. Same thing. We have 2-a-days and then we have fun. We'll go out for a beer bash, or I'll take the lineman out to dinner. it's got to be included. It can't just be work hard, because you're working them hard anyways. They know
Yep.
that. But I love what you're doing. This is a great reason to reach out to Steve and learn more about what he does, because this is the stuff that he's learned. Now, with your personal experiences, how have they shaped your leadership style?
Yeah. I early on in my life, and we've talked about it before. I was forced into a point of really looking at myself and understanding what impact I was going to make on the world, and who Steve was, and those forced opportunities to spend time really digging into my heart and who I am and how I go about the world. That's informed me throughout my career, right? And I think during those early times, I came to that understanding that my purpose of life is kind of that self-actualization, right? How can I be the best person I can be? And that means, in lots of different spheres, right? Certainly achievement, right? To whatever level, God's graced me with skills to do. And so that means, am I being as productive as I am? Am I, balancing my work life the best I can? Am I, showing up with as much learning and training? Am I showing up well prepared? All those kind of things that lead to achievement, but it also means spirituality, right? How strong is my spiritual world, right? How am I feeding that? How am I showing up for my kids? Am I the best parent I can be? And the answer is always no, right? We can always do more, but it's that aspirational thing of self-actualization, right? How can I continue to improve in these various areas of responsibility and influence and action? So as I look at my work world, right, that's super important on every level, right? How do I treat people, right? Is this the best way that I could coach this person? Was that the best approach to help them be successful, right? So all those questions are the same, right? And I think at some point, today I think of that as, am I acting out aligned with my values, right? And the answer is never yes perfectly, right? The answer is, some percentage or some close grade towards that, right? With the goal that, the aspirational goal that someday towards the end of my life, I can say, you know what, I got to 98%, and that's pretty darn good, right?
Yeah, no, I like that. Aspirations are good. Let's get a little personal. We're coming to the end of the show, which flew by. I knew it would, because you get so much great information. If you could interview anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oof, gosh, I have a few on my list. I think I've always had Albert Einstein on my list, and just because that level of intelligence and that level of craziness with his intelligence, it would be interesting just to see how I could communicate with that, right? And supposedly, I don't know him great, but or I haven't studied him much, but he had a very down to earth persona, right, or personality. So I would love to see how that interplays. Another one that's been on my list that, for obvious reasons, he probably wouldn't take the meeting, but Mark Twain, just that wit, and kind of down to earth with those quick quibs and all of that, and super intelligent, right? I think that would be an awesome one.
Yeah,
So
those are two great ones.
I could probably
Yeah,
list 20 of them, right? Because people interest me and history interests me, right? And so
yeah.
but those are two for you that I
Well,
like.
that's good, because that's why I love asking that question. It gets to get to know you a little deeper. More
Mm,
intellect is part of what you like to that sparks you, and that's everybody's different, and it's great to learn that. So
hmm
we're at the end here. How can people reach out to you if they want to ask questions or get to know more about you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, and certainly look me up, Steve Margarine on LinkedIn, or reach out to my website, which is margarineassociates.com. And on my LinkedIn, you can see some of my work on talking about leadership and talking about faith and leadership and those kind of topics. So certainly follow me there. And on my website, there's sales tools and resources, and you can hear some thoughts on sales leadership on my blog, found there as well at margarineassociates.com. And my phone number's on there too, so feel free to give me a holler. I'd love to chat.
That's a servant's heart. Anybody gives out their phone number like I do, that's somebody that's not scared, that's willing to work with you. It's just a great sign. Um, Thank you again, Steve. This has been incredible. I knew it would be. I want to remind you my TV show every Friday, Together We Serve, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to comment on the YouTube or a podcast, and I'll get Steve or whoever the guest is, I'll get that information to him, or just reach out to him. All this information will be in the show notes. You can click a link and be right there and connect with them. I suggest you connect on LinkedIn too. It's such a great way to get to know him and learn more about him. And as always, me and Steve, thank you so much for listening or watching this podcast. And we'll see you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody.